All right, welcome to another song title challenge where the question is, climbers, how would you write this one? This is a bonus episode every other Friday where climbers, listeners of this podcast, send in their song titles to info at daredevilproduction.com. Production is singular, there is no S. Info at daredevilproduction.com. You put song title challenge or STC in the subject line so it gets into the right folder. If you don't, it won't. And then I kind of rifle through these when we're going to record them, and I spring them live to Brent and a guest that we have, a hit songwriter guest that we have on the show. And we just talk about 4 or 5 different conceptual angles on how to write that song title, because sometimes the imagery within the song title will lead us to some clear low hanging fruit. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's the right way to go, but usually it's the most cliche way to go. And
Right.
you want to twist that up a little bit and just think a little bit deeper. So this is step one in the difference between a good song and a great song. If you look at if you can separate the emotion from the event here and just think about the song title "The Dance," and just for what it is, just a song title in a hook book, you would glaze right over that. That is not something that makes you stop and say, "Oh, I wonder what he's talking about here." It's not, so here's a mundane song title,
Mhm.
but then Tony Arata writes it and it is life changing,
Right.
literally life changing. I mean, it just becomes one of the most incredible songs ever written because of the angle that he took. It wasn't actually about dancing with a girl,
Right.
or something that was low hanging fruit. He took it to another level because he put some thought into it. So that's what we're trying to do: just flex your muscles, show you how we do this, have some fun creative exercise. It's not a co-write in any way, shape, or form. Use all of what we say, use none of what we say. And as always, we demand a invite to the number one party. Having said
Mhm.
that, today's an intervention.
That's right, because apparently, some of you need a little further direction
Yeah,
on what is, a song title, because I
right.
get to hear Johnny, gripe off air about titles that he doesn't put on the show. Now, just because your title hasn't made it to the show yet doesn't mean your title sucks, okay? We just haven't gotten to all of them yet, but there apparently, Johnny, is a
But we get a
subset
lot of titles.
of
We get a lot.
titles that are not quite suitable for a song title challenge because they're not enough of a title.
Or they're not a title, period.
I'm being kind,
Right.
apparently. So, all right. So
So
maybe
hold on. So
maybe
so let me just
yes.
explain where this came from. So I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, because and this is coming from a lot of different places, okay? There's a lot of different, and I just wanna say to everybody that contributes to Song Title Challenge, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't stop contributing. This is not, uh, a negative, but I just thought, okay, so here we can help some people with just the idea of putting together a title or some different tools that you could use to make a better title because
Hmm.
I want you to win. I want to take that title and put it on the show, but and have some fun with it. But when it's
Hmm.
not a title, it's and there's a lot again. There's a lot of different people that are sending this stuff in, and it's kind of like the same. They sort of have the same issues in that they're not
Hmm.
titles. And so I just thought, wow, this is happening enough that um, we should say something, right?
Right.
And offer up some help, right? Not
That's
just
right.
complain about it, but hey, what can we do to make a better what's the difference between a song title and something that's not a song title? And
Hmm.
then some different ways to play with creating a song title, because I
Hmm.
mean these are some of these are just yeah. So I'm just a little frustrated, I guess, and complaining to Brent, like, we gotta do something about this, because we're we have so many of them that come in and they're not if they're not titles, then again, it's like we can't use them. And I like it's one thing to go through a stack of titles and have to choose one that we're gonna use today.
Hmm.
It's another thing to spend 20 minutes going through a stack of non-titles that,
Right.
it's discouraging.
Now I'm gonna be angel's advocate here and just assume that which angel's advocate would be a pretty good title anyway. But anyway,
Oh,
would be. Yeah, I'm sure some people are just taking the term challenge and they really want to challenge us and go, let's see what you do with this,
That
Brent
might be
and
what it
Johnny.
is.
Then maybe
Yeah.
some of them are going, oh, this is hilarious. And turn that into a title. I would love to, because it's so ridiculously
Or turn that
and
into a
obviously
song. But this isn't
not
like
a
create
title.
a title. Our job is
Or
to create the angle on the title.
yeah, so like what can you guys do with this one? Maybe some of that. Who knows? But either way, we figured this can be helpful for either if you wanted to send in titles for this, but really more importantly, just for your own songs. What can help make a stronger title so you can continue on your climb more effectively, whether or not you send it in to us or you just go get it on the radio, you know? So, yeah,
Yeah, and for those again, for those of you sending stuff in, don't stop sending it in. Like, I don't wanna discourage anybody from doing this. It's like but I just want you to send in something that we can work with, because I want you to get on the show, you know?
help us help you. Help us.
Yeah,
Yes. So, I'll just talk about some of these points and then probably as we discuss, then some of the downside, like the mess up, will come to, we'll talk about it. So, one big thing I think is, and this changes over time, all this stuff kind of changes over time over what goes in and out of fashion. But in general, keep it short and simple, songwriter. Kiss. Keep it short and simple, songwriter. Kiss.
right,
So, like you, Johnny, you love to talk about the title of the dance, right? It's a
right.
short, simple title,
2 words. Yep.
2 words. I'm pulling up one of my streaming services and just pulling up a contemporary country playlist of like stuff that's going out right now. You have Ghost Story, Carrie Underwood. Okay, Songs About You, Brett Eldridge. Nervous, Maren Morris. Worth a Shot, Ellie King featuring Dirk Bentley. Man Made, Matt Stell. Tomorrow Me, Luke Combs. Okay, these are all 2, 3 word. Soul,
They're
Lee
tight.
Rice. They're tight. If I Was a Cowboy, Miranda Lambert. Some are a little bit longer. Everybody Needs a Song, Chris Young and Old Dominion, Should Have Known Better, Jesse James Decker. So, but they're not like a full on run on sentence. You're
Yeah.
keeping it tight. So I know, Johnny, you read a few to me off the air because we don't want to throw anybody under the bus here or anything, but it was like a whole sentence. I was like, well, you know what? You could probably break that up into like 2 different song titles. You could use the first
Yeah.
part of it. You could pull this phrase out and be a song title, or you could pull this part out and that could be the song title too. Because we'll do that. I'll come in with like a hook, like say Monday Morning Church. It could have been like "You Left My Heart as Empty as a Monday Morning Church" as the title, right? Because you say it twice in each
Right.
chorus. You could say, "Oh, that's the title." It's just not as punchy as Monday Morning Church, right?
Yeah.
And church would be a little too non-committal, a little too generic.
Right.
So what's a minimum viable product? What's a minimum effective dose of title?
Ooh,
How can we keep it as short
I
and
like
memorable,
that.
bumper stickerish, but it's still effective dose? Too much, you water it down. It's not you give away the whole thing, right? Why buy the milk when you get or why buy the cow when you get the milk for free, kind of thing. You could give the whole thing away.
And
You don't
by
have
the
to do
and
that. But
so by the way too, like, Monday Morning Church was the hook, right? That was the title.
that's the title. Yeah.
And that was like, wow, because that just eviscerated it just invoked a feeling of emptiness, like an imagery of empty, right? It's
Hmm.
not Sunday
Right.
when
Exactly.
everything's happening, right? Like,
Right.
it's after the hustle and bustle, it's after the
Right.
event, it's after
Yeah.
the celebration, it's
Which
after,
right.
and there's a thousand ways to go with that. But if you had
Hmm.
made the title, "His Heart Was as Empty as a Monday Morning Church," which
Hmm.
is, a brilliant route, obviously, to write that song, a hit song, okay?
Hmm.
But also that closes the loop, doesn't it? Like, all of a sudden
Well,
now it's like that has to be the focus.
and well, that's actually going to be point number two. So point one is keep it simple, like try to find your minimum effective
Okay, wait,
dose.
wait, before we go to point number 2, let
Yes.
me let me add to that, point number 1, point number 1.
Mhm.
So, for those of you that have been sending in, like, if you recognize this, right? If you've been sending in, like, longer titles, or sentences or feelings, right?
Mhm.
Or sort of images like, the rain fell from heaven and flooded the first floor. That's not a title, right? Like,
But
that's
that's in the vein of some of the ones that we received. Yes.
yeah, yeah, that's not one that's been sent in. But the idea, so I got another little tool for you to use. Man,
Mhm,
write that title out and do the David Bowie treatment on it.
mhm,
Write it out on a piece of paper and then take some scissors and cut out each word, okay? And then just start playing around with them and putting 2 and 2 together and with no rhyme or reason and just
mhm,
being super creative like that to see what comes up. Like, you might, stumble across some alliteration or stumble
mhm,
across 2 words that or 3 words that work together,
mhm.
and because, I mean, the idea that these words are coming out of you, I think is cool, right? And but
Oh, yeah.
they just need to be refined a little bit more.
Yeah, and what that may be on some of those is like, oh, that's the line that gets the story started. That you start brainstorming off and go, where does that lead me? And it's a kickstart, which is great, but it may not be like a title.
It's not the title, yeah.
Yeah, but like,
That's a good
oh,
point. That's a good point.
the first floor, or rain came down, or there are different ways you can chunk that up. So
Yeah.
keep it simple, keep it
First
short,
floor flood.
minimum. First floor
That's like
flood, which is another point I'll get to. That's point number three. That
Oh,
alludes to
okay.
point number
Alright.
three.
Okay, okay, okay.
So
I like that we're doing this right now because
okay,
this makes my heart happy.
okay,
We're gonna get more we're gonna get more good titles that we can or just decent titles that we can make g great with our contribution to the concept, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, and hopefully the big thing is just that climber, your titles get better and your songs get better. But okay, point number two is open a loop. So if so, Johnny, you kind of talked about that. Like if Monday morning church hopefully opens a loop, like what's that about? Like
Yeah.
it's intriguing. Hopefully, you go, oh, mine's normally Sunday. What's that about? So it opens a loop in your mind that you kind of want to close. You want to use a little itch that you want to scratch. It poses a question you want answered. The house that built me was one. I'm like, ooh, what happened in
Mhm.
that house? Like that
Yeah.
to make you who you are, right? It opened a loop, and so it doesn't give it away. I think there's um, a a George Strait song, "House with No Doors." I think it
Uh-huh.
was a Jamie Johnson written song that George Strait cut. "House with No Doors." You're like, huh? It's an image, which is also helpful, but it's like it's intriguing. Like, what is that
What does
about?
that mean?
What does that mean? What do they do with that? Right? You hear sometimes you're like, oh, I can't wait to hear what they did with that, or maybe ask it a question. Does he love you? Reba and
Yeah.
Linda Davis. Oh, that's interesting. Asking a question. So naturally,
And so so
we
so
hear a question, we want to hear an answer. So these titles, if you can open a loop, pose a question, make a little itch that somebody's going to want to hear, the answer to, it makes them a little more likely to want to hear your song. Then that's true whether we call it winning before you're spinning. If it's a great title, they want it to be great before they listen to it, so they're already like rooting for it versus expecting it to be bad. But also, that may get your song listened to in a stack of songs that an A&R person doesn't have time to get all the way through to go, oh, House That Built Me. That's a little more interesting. I kind of want to know what that's about. You can listen to those
yeah.
first.
And
All
so
else
know
being equal.
this, to your point, because this number 2 points to number 1. Number
Hmm.
1 is keep it short and simple, right? Keep it
Hmm.
simple. The more words that you add to your title,
The more you
the
give away.
more effectively you're gonna take away you're closing the loop. Like, if your
Uh huh.
title was, "His heart was as empty as a Monday morning church," well, you've already answered the question.
I've kind of like, okay, he's heartbroken, and it's a heartbreak thing. You
Right.
may not know all the details, but you're like, oh, okay, 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 I get what this is about. Right.
But it's
And
like
so you
when
kind
you
of
go to
answer your own
when you go
question.
okay, so last night I was at Freak Show again,
Hmm.
and by the way, I forgot to tell you this. 2 climbers came up
No,
and
love that.
introduced themselves and were like, "Hey, you're Johnny, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, oh my god, I listen all the time, like, I'm from here, I'm from there." Super cool, we took pictures, I'll have to
That's
send it
great.
to you, super fun.
Yeah.
I love hearing from climbers. But, what's really awesome is, like, when the writers get up, so this is like a highly curated writers round, we've
Mhm.
talked about it a million times, I think everybody knows what it is. If they 3 songwriters will get up there and they'll sing their songs, and this in front of a room, there's a lot of industry people there, a lot of other writers
Mhm.
there. There's a this is not an open mic night, this is highly curated.
Mhm. Right.
And man, you talk about opening the loop, the payoff. You
Mhm.
see it every night, every Wednesday and every Friday night at the freak show when they get through the chorus and then they drop that bomb, like
Mhm.
where all of a sudden you find out that what Monday Morning Church means, whether that's the tag on the chorus
Mhm.
or whether it cut, yours started out like that, right? His heart was as empty
Yeah, on
as a
the
mon
top of the hook or top of the
Yeah,
chorus, yeah.
yeah, and then you're just like, "Oh," and you just hear people react.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
like, "Oh," and you just hear somebody like, "Dang," "Yeah, great,"
Yeah, I love
and
that, yeah.
they feel it, because they're like, "You just slapped me upside the head
Mhm,
with the ambush, with the payoff, with your interpretation of what that title means."
mhm,
That's part of it, man. That's part
yeah,
of the what makes it so great. Like, even with a mundane title like The
mhm,
Dance, when, I'd have had to have missed the dance, and you're like,
yeah.
"Oh,"
It's about
and
life
you
and
just
yeah,
grab your heart, and you're like, "Oh my god, I get that. That is
yeah.
so good," you know?
What it is, it's a little bit of a magic trick,
Yeah,
and you don't wanna give away the trick. It's like you have this effect on you pull off this effect,
yeah,
and like, "Oh my gosh," you don't give away the whole magic trick,
yeah,
and that's what you can do sometimes if you give away too much in the title, you answer your own question. They're like, "Oh, I don't need to listen to it now because I already know what it's about."
yeah,
And so that's the thing too. It's like don't give it all away. You want to open a loop, pose a little question, make a little itch that they want to scratch. Another thing is alliteration is great. So we talked about first floor flood, right? I'm
mhm,
like, oh, I like that alliteration. That's tasty. Monday morning church, right? So that's one of the things that help with that. We have so just some examples of like country music is Kane Brown has one out called "Like I Love Country Music." Like I love country music.
mhm.
Uh, Dirks Bentley had one called "Come a Little Closer." Jordan Davis has one out right now called "What My World Spins Around." So just alliteration on that. So which is alliteration is the same sound at the beginning of words. So it's like rhymes, but at the beginning, it's the same sound.
Right.
Come closer, the k k sound. Like I love country music, the L sound, like love. And so that just helps it your title feel like you mentioned before tighter. It feels more of a unit, more of a thing, more of a bumper sticker, more of a just a. It's more memorable. It's more hooky. It just has a little bit more of that ear candy to it already. It already sounds like more of a title.
There you
Like
go.
I mentioned, I said Angel's Advocate, which is a couple
Yeah,
things. One, that's a twist on the cliche, the Devil's Advocate, right?
yep.
So you twist the cliche, makes it a little more fresh. And then I twisted it, and it had alliteration. Angel's Advocate. Oh,
Yeah,
huh, that
AA.
just sounds like a thing. That sounds like a thing. All right. So,
Oh,
like as
oh,
I
oh,
said that, yeah.
Angel's Advocate, AA,
Hey, hey.
Alcoholics Anonymous,
There you
right?
go. There
Like,
you go. Play with that
they're
too.
angels advocates. We're here to help you, you know?
Right.
Like, wow.
Okay. We're not going to song title challenge that yet.
Okay, that was just really good though, dude. You gotta write that down.
See, and part of that title is keeping your antenna up for phrases, and it's funny because how how many times I've been told like you talk in song titles. Or buddies of
Yeah.
mine that are writers. We're just always playing with language and always trying to find like a little better way to say stuff or just trying to
Uh-huh.
just because it's all always kind of churning in there. So you want to keep your ears open to what you say, and then also what other people say that have like, ooh, that was a neat little phrase, alliteration, or what? That's a compelling little phrase there. What is that?
Uh-huh.
So
Learn to
alliteration is
recognize, learn to recognize.
recognize. You better recognize. Um, s-
Recognize.
so, so alliteration is
There's
great.
another one. The hits just keep coming
Oh,
today, man.
exactly. No,
Recognize. Is that a song?
that was from there's this old reality show that was hot for a hot minute there called Honey Boo Boo.
Oh, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember that Honey Boo Boo? And she was like, "You better recognize." Anyway, I was just pulling that from the Wayback Machine. But I think that probably did end up on my hook list one time, and I just never. I was like, no, I just didn't. But anyway, keeping the ears open. So keep it simple, songwriter. Keep it short.
Okay, real
Open the
quick
loop.
question on number
Yes.
3, on alliteration.
Alliteration. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of, like, things that you do, any exercises that you do to play with alliteration?
Uh, Not on purpose these days, but that's stuff that you can. you can play with and go, oh, here's an interesting word, like a noun, like river. Okay, river. Let's do one. Okay, so here's a river. Okay, that sounds like a good title for a song or something that would be in a title. Garth has the river, river of dreams. Billy Joel, river. That's good fodder for a title. Okay, let's play the alliteration game. Let's say, ooh, river revolver. Raging river. Okay. Uh, you know,
River run, run
river
river.
runs, run river. Oh, that's interesting. You like telling the river to run. Uh, let's see, Rampart River, Round River, Rolling River, River Rocks, Rocky River. Just start playing. Just go. Okay, I'm just gonna play, but with alliteration and see what comes up. Ramsey's River. Okay, who's Ramsey? Rhonda's River. Help me, Rhonda. I'm stuck in the river of love.
Help me
Um,
run, help me
you
run.
know, and Radio River. Radio River. That's interesting. I'm riding that Radio River all the way back home. I'm surfing, channel surfing, man. I'm riding that Radio River.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, that's interesting. The radio likes songs about radio,
Look,
so that's pretty
guys,
cool.
this is a freaking Thursday right now. This is just what happens
No, that's right.
when you start to play with the tools the right way, you know?
Right. And so that can be a fun thing to pick a noun that you think is interesting and now start alliterating on it. And notice all those were like 2 words. For one thing, because
Yeah.
it's hard to alliterate more than 2 words and make it make sense. You can always play this, but again, keeping it simple. So that would be fun. Internal rhymes are great on titles or rhyming titles. Like Thomas Rhett has one out right now called Us Someday. And that us some as a sound, us someday. Just
Yeah.
like it has a little bit internal flow to it, a rhythm to it. It's got Brian Kelly from FGL has one called Whatever Floats Your Boat. And that's a cliche, but float
Mhm.
boat, right? It has that internal rhyme to it, which just helps it have a bounce and a melody kind of to it. It kind of tells you where the emphasis falls and how easy would it be to write a melody to whatever floats your boat. You already know you're emphasizing float and boat, and O
Mhm.
sounds are great. So those are things if you can um, have internal rhymes in here. So maybe you can play with that too and go, okay, um, okay, let's take a noun or maybe take a verb. Let's see, running. Okay, running and gunning.
Mhm.
Running in the sun. Okay,
Done
now
running.
done running. Right. So now we're like, oh, let's play with internal rhymes with these or
Yeah.
rhymes with these. It could be internal, it could be at the end of the line, or it could be something in the middle of the word or whatever. Let's play with that. Running and sunning, and up and running. Got the sound, up and running has a nice thing to it. So you can come up with, we're just like, here's your title generator for the day. How
Yeah.
many titles have we come up with already? And that's not even why we're here.
You're like a machine, bro. I love it.
So practice, right? You start working that
Yeah.
muscle and it gets more, you start to hear the stuff and it gets more, and then everything, like what I do is everything goes on the list and then I song title challenge them. And then I figure out
Yeah.
what they're about. Radio
Yeah.
Revolver, I don't have to know what that's about. Oh yeah, I do. Actually, I know what Radio Revolver's about. It's like playing Russian roulette, and you don't know if that song's going to come on that's going to make you think about her. And you're flipping stations playing that Radio Revolver. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, it played our song. It's just a matter of time, right? Like Russian roulette. So anyway, so internal rhymes are great. Alliterations are great. Imagery is always helpful. Jordan Davis has that song "By Dirt." There's so
Yeah.
many songs that have some sort of imagery in there that gives you a little picture of the house that built me, right? So you have a picture of a house. It's not super specific, but it is something. You have Flower Shops by Ernest featuring Morgan Wallen. That I see a flower shop. I see flowers. I'm just looking
Mhm.
through some stuff here. Good beer. So Seaforth and Jordan Davis. Okay, so I see a beer. So if there's something that you can have a little bit of a picture with, that is a helpful thing as well. Like Monday Morning Church was definitely a play for there's an imagery of like some church stuff. It evokes some sort of pictures. River of Dreams, Billy Joel. So coming back to the river thing. My last cigarette. Okay, I
Mhm.
see the cigarette, and also I'm intrigued as to why this is my last cigarette. So I open a loop with an image. They're like, okay, so especially when you start to put a couple of these together, then your titles can get pretty evocative, and hopefully get you winning before. Like My Last Cigarette. Okay, I don't know if I've heard that before, if I just pulled it out of my butt, but I want to hear what that's about. Like, why is that my last cigarette? Because
Yeah.
I just found out my wife's pregnant, right?
Uh,
I got to get my junk together, or because I only smoke around you, you know, that kind of thing.
or
Because
because you
you
feel
just
like
that
you're on
influence.
because you're literally on, or you feel like you're on a firing line.
Exactly. This might be my last cigarette. Yeah, she's about to shoot me down.
Yeah.
Or like we only smoke because we're together. It's our social kind of thing, and you just left me. So I guess
Yeah.
I didn't know that was my last cigarette. Whatever. There's 1,000 things you can do, but I don't want to know what that's about. But I can see it too. So um, so keep it short and simple. Open a loop. Alliteration is great. Internal rhymes are great. Imagery is helpful, and twist in a cliche. So just a cliche title is not interesting, because I feel like I've either heard it 1,000 times, or I feel like I already know what it's about. But if you can
Mhm.
twist it a little bit, then give us a little twist off what's expected. The house that built me. Now that's not a cliche, but it's a twist on it. It's subverting expectation. Normally you
Yeah.
think the house that I built, or the house that we built, but it's the house that built
Yeah.
me. Monday morning church. Oh, I'm used to Sunday morning church. What's going on there? It helps to open that loop, but it subverts expectations a little bit. Whatever boats your float, whatever, like, huh? What would that be?
Yeah.
Or how can you play around to give us something a little unexpected, subvert an expectation? You don't give us quite what we're thinking, and we're thinking, okay, well, if you're interested just on the title, but there's something like, you put a little extra thought into that, you twisted it, you gave me something I didn't expect. What's the rest of the song going to do? It kind of makes a promise that hopefully the rest of the song is going to be as interesting as the title is.
That's
So
right.
anyway, we try to keep these episodes short. Those are just some of the tips I had for you for when you're working your titles, and hopefully
I think we needed to
that'll
have
help.
that. I'm really glad about it. I think that's some really cool tools and just some different things that you can kind of focus on that I think number 1, just like each one of those steps, like focusing on each one of those steps for a half hour one day,
Hmm.
on like one of those steps, it would just be really an interesting and fun artistic itch to scratch. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Because 'Cause
Hmm.
it'd be like again, just like taking all like you're taking all the titles that you have and then just cutting them all up into words and then just messing around with them and just playing with that
Hmm.
first one. Keep it short and sweet. What 2 words can I come up with here? And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you're gonna like, I feel like in the first 3 minutes, you're gonna have a couple wins. You're gonna be like,
Yeah.
"Holy crap." Like, when you get going, you're gonna be like, "Oh, oh my god. Oh, 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 write this down, write that. Oh my goodness." And it's just gonna come flowing out of you. And then you're gonna be like, "I can't wait to spend a half an hour tomorrow on step 2. Like,
Right.
what we're gonna do with that," like
Hmm.
alliteration. "Oh, let's play that game."
Hmm.
And just have but thinking, I think at first it's gonna feel forced because you're thinking about it, but what you're doing is you're
Hmm.
just taking this muscle that maybe you haven't flexed a lot and
Hmm.
you're working it out, but pretty soon it just starts to rattle off and it just becomes a lens that you're looking through. It's very clear.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
it becomes second nature, like a system 2 kind of a thing. So anyway, Brent, thank you from the bottom of my heart for putting that together.
My pleasure, Johnny. Glad I could
All
help
right,
you.
buddy. All right, guys. Well, that brings us to the end of another killer song title challenge. This was your intervention. I can't wait to get these new titles that you send in to info@daredevilproduction.com. Put song title challenge or STC in the subject line, and let's get some more of your titles on our show. Okay, guys, we love you, and we want to get those titles on here. That's why we did
Mhm.
this, because we're for you. We want you to win. Okay, so keep
That's
on
right.
climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.